more than a year ago, I was on this flight to Denver, and there was a gentleman sitting next to me, and we struck up a conversation. We started talking about travel, because we both love to travel, and he asked me, "Have you ever been to Sedona, Arizona?" And I said, "No. What's special about Sedona?" And he said to me, "Well, a lot of people travel there to hunt down vortexes." And I said, "What is a vortex?" And he responded, "Well, you can't see them with your eyes, but they're supposedly these powerful energy spots. And a lot of people swear by them, and they'll go hiking and looking for them. And when they find one, they'll meditate on it. And it's supposed to not only promote physical healing, but also mental, emotional, and spiritual healing." So after that flight, I went down a whole rabbit hole. I could not stop Googling these vortexes, although he did tell me that a lot of people also think they're nonsense. And his last words to me had been, "I guess you're just gonna have to go for yourself one day, experience it, and decide what you want to believe in." Well, after all this Googling, I decided I wanted to go find out. So last October, I packed a suitcase and told my family and friends, "See ya, I am off to the desert for a month." And if I'm being honest, around this time, I felt like I could use some healing myself. Due to some life events, my sense of self had been shaken a little bit, and I was starting to feel like an outsider, even to myself. So I figured, okay, well, a month in the desert, even if it's just a change of scenery, might be good for me. So I ended up booking a room in an Airbnb, and the host and her husband also lived there. And let me just tell you, Sedona is something else. I've been really lucky that I've gotten to travel to a lot of different places, but I've never been anywhere quite like Sedona. During my month there, all of these unexplainable things kept happening, but I only have time to tell you about one of them. So, on the first night that I get to the Airbnb, around 8 or 9 p.m. or so, I go to use the bathroom, and when I lift the cover of the toilet up, there's an ant in there, and it's just hanging out on the side above where the water is. And I thought, this doesn't belong here. It should be outside. But I am very ashamed to say I did not take it outside. Instead, out of reflux, I flushed it down the toilet. And I didn't think too much about it and went to bed. So the next day, I worked remotely from the Airbnb and went to the bathroom a few times during the day, as one naturally does. And I have this habit where I always leave the toilet cover down when I'm not using it. I didn't see anything out of the ordinary in the toilet, but then around the exact same time, around 8 or 9 p.m. or so, I go to the bathroom, lift up the cover of the toilet, and there's another ant in there. And I couldn't tell if it was the same ant or a different ant, but I thought, that's a strange coincidence. And again, I'm very ashamed to say, I flushed the ant down the toilet. So the third day, again, same thing. I worked remotely from the Airbnb, went to the bathroom a couple of times during the day, and I was extra careful this time to definitely make sure the toilet cover was down so that nothing from the outside could get in when I wasn't using it. And around 8 or 9 p.m., same time, I go to use the bathroom, and there's a little thought in the back of my head like, no, that would be too strange if it happened a third time. I go and lift the cover of the toilet up. There's another ant! And at this point, I'm freaking out a little bit because I'm like, this is weird. And out of panic, I ended up flushing the ant down the toilet a third time. But this time, I start to feel bad, like kind of guilty. Like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that. So I go to bed, and the next day, it's the fourth day, and I ended up taking a walk with my Airbnb host. And as we're walking, I just sort of casually ask her, so, in Sedona, is it a common thing for ants to hang out in people's toilets? And she gives me this funny look and is like, well, that's a very random and specific question. I've lived in Sedona for a really long time, and no, I've never heard of this being a thing. Why? Did you find an ant in your toilet? And I had a private bath at this Airbnb, so I was the only one going in and out of it. And I looked at her and I was like, maybe. And she said to me, oh, well, I hope you took it outside. Oh. And oh my gosh, the guilt just compounded, and I didn't have the heart to tell her, no, I didn't take it outside, and I flushed it not just once, but 3 times. So later that day, I started mentally preparing, and every hour I would check the toilet. 4 p.m., okay, nothing. 5 p.m., nothing. 6 p.m., nothing. 7 p.m., still nothing. And then around 8 or 9 p.m. or so, I brace myself, and when I lift the cover of the toilet up, like clockwork, it is back. But this time, instead of flushing it, I go to the kitchen, grab a plastic cup, and then scoop the ant up and free it outside. And for the rest of the entire month that I was in Sedona at that very same Airbnb, I never saw an ant in the toilet again. I told this story to one of my friends who's not religious or spiritual at all, and she said to me, oh my gosh, Sophia, I think you fulfilled some sort of mini karmic cycle. And for the longest time, I didn't know what to make out of this experience, but the more I reflected on it, the more I started questioning, why had I been so flippant about flushing that ant down the toilet in the first place? I mean, sure, to us humans, an ant is very insignificant, but it's still a life. I mean, if I were the ant, I would sure hope that someone would help take me outside instead of flush me down the toilet, and I never thought I would put myself in the shoes of an ant and empathize with an ant, but here we are. And the more I thought about it, like, okay, it had only taken me 30 seconds to bring it outside, the more I realized, there's some things that I really want to change about myself, particularly around how my behaviors and actions impact the world around me, no matter how big or small. And now, whenever I find a bug in my own home here in Charlotte, instead of harming it, I'll take the time to take it outside. And in some ways, I think I did find the healing that I was looking for in Sedona, because that month that I was there taught me that nobody is too insignificant to lend a helping hand to or to show some kindness to. And that's including myself. So, while I was there, did I ever find a vortex? Why, yes, I did. And did I feel any different when I found it? Well, maybe one of these days, you'll just have to go for yourself, experience it, and decide what you want to believe in. Thank you.